pieces of wood from southwestern sites paint an accurate picture of the environment centuries ago.
One of the primary tools of dating is tree ring dating of pieces of wood that you find in the Southwest. It's lying around, they're using it for timber. Let me just show you for a minute how tree ring dating works. That every year a tree will put down a ring, and during a wet year a tree will put down a big fat ring, and then during a dry year a tree will put down a little skinny ring like that, and then you have maybe another dry year around here and another wet year, big fat wet year around here. So that gives you a record of the environment when that tree was living. But then you take another tree and you see that that tree has 2 dry years right here, and so it's representing those 2 years, and then a fat ring coming around here, and then another dry year around here, and a big fat wet ring around here. And what you're doing is you're lining up the tree ring widths over long periods of time, so that southwestern archaeologists have been able to take this environmental record, and by matching up 20, 30-year periods of time, they're able to push that tree ring record back. Now it goes back more than 3,000 years of matching up dry, dry, wet, 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 dry, 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 dry years over a long period of time, so that we have a tree ring record of a millennium.
Scientists know that a series of droughts hit the Southwest a century after Chaco's demise. With little rain came competition for resources, triggering a wave of intertribal violence.
We found headless bodies and bodiless heads, where you'll have stacked bodies in kivas, where it looks like the people of that village were rounded up, put in the kivas, and then the kiva was torched.
Warfare escalated, sweeping across the Anasazi world.
What warfare does is it causes you to pick defensive locations for your sites. You pick strategic locations where you can see from your site to your neighbor's site and to another neighbor, so that you weave together this defensive network.
Jonathan Haas has agreed to take us to one of these defensive Anasazi sites, hidden deep in a canyon in northern Arizona, a place called Quetzil.
Canyons are, at best, really inaccessible. It is never easy to get in these canyons. It's never easy to move around these canyons. This is where I traditionally get lost, and we're lost, so okay, we're back on trail. And as you come around the corner, okay, you can look now. There's Quetzil. It's the greatest site I know of in the entire Southwest. It looks like it was abandoned yesterday. Let's go ahead and go up and take a look and see what it was like for the residents of Quetzil. As you go up the ladder, it's interesting to see, as you're sort of clinging to the face of the rock, that the hand and toe holds that the original occupants used parallel the ladder. And you can see a whole series of little hand and toe holds going straight up, which is the way they would have come. They didn't have a nice ladder leading up into it.
Construction on this 160-room defensive post began around the year 1270, only to be abandoned 20 years later. Walking along the edge of Quetzil, it's easy to see just how defensible the site is.
Your warring enemies come up, and all you have to do is fling the rocks down, wang them in the head, and you're going to keep people out of here. It's a perfect defensive strategy.
But living at Quetzil, so high up off the ground, was just as dangerous as an enemy attack.
They're weighing the danger of living in a place like this versus the threat by outside people who are going to attack, steal your corn, burn your rooms, take your children, take your women. You're weighing those, and ultimately they're making the decision to move into and take pretty extraordinary measures to defend themselves.
This defense strategy relied on one key element: communication with other sites. To view other Allied cliff dwellings, residents of Keet-Seel would scramble up toeholds to scale the rock face. Connected by line of sight, posts like Keet-Seel deep in the canyon were linked up with dwellings on the outside.
It's a very integrated, closely knit community of sites, and they're all intervisible with one another. So you can see from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and they can signal, they can communicate back and forth.
Using smoke or reflective stones to communicate across the valleys and canyons, the entire Allied system could quickly learn of an enemy attack on one site and deploy a defensive force.
They form a defensive system that is integrated and ultimately coherent, and when one part of it falls, you can see how the whole system collapses.
By the year 1280, life was getting tougher for the Anasazi, holed up in places like Keet-Seel.
1280, 1281, the warfare's still going on, the environment's terrible at this point. And somehow, somewhere in the course of those next 4, 5, 6 years, somebody gives up. And at that point, not one site has to go, all the sites have to go. And so it's like wildfire sweeping across the Southwest. Boom, 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 boom. And everybody goes because they've pushed it too far.
By 1300, the Anasazi had all left the Four Corners region. An entire civilization of architects and engineers, astronomers and artists, scattered to the winds.
The abandonment doesn't mean at all the fall of a civilization. The Anasazi culture as a whole, if you will, was simply moved and continued to thrive elsewhere. What you look at the Southwest is the triumph of success. There is a romance to archaeology. There's an inherent quality of mystery to it. And there is the Indiana Jones aspect of archaeology, that you're sort of out doing adventure and finding, ancient lost treasures.
Chip Stanish can smell a lost treasure in these Andean hills. The burial ground he found earlier indicates that a site lies close by, but daylight is fading. There's not much time left to find it.
Okay, so we're picking up some pottery here. Not a lot, but we're actually getting some of the mica tempered stuff, and that's the Pucara.
And suddenly, Chip's long hunt pays off.
Here's another. Oh!
God damn.
This is nice. It's not fancy, but it's incised. And it has these incisions that are very, very characteristic Pucara. And it's rare. This was a fancy vessel.
It's a good sign that this ancient place was once a Pucara religious site.
This looks like a little temple area. And I don't want to use that word too loosely, but it is not a domestic residence. It's something more than just some living space. Now, as I'm looking over there, I see some spectacular buildings. They're certainly not Pucara, but they kind of look Inca.
From just these few scattered clues, Chip can quickly assess his find.
It's a Pucara site. They were living here. We know that. Living here from 300 BC to about maybe 300 AD. Then we have a big Inca occupation. We know that because there's plenty of Inca pottery, and we have stone walls that look very Inca. That's been a good day. We found the Pucara site on the road, Not the big massive temple that I would like, but you can't find those all the time. But we did find a good Pokhara site with some fancy architecture. The sites are up there, the small villages are up there. We have Inca roads, we have Pokhara sites, colonies. Yeah, this is, when we systematically survey this, we're going to have quite a nice story to tell.
At day's end, Chip Stanish is one step closer to unlocking some of these mysteries of our past.
We're doing it in the remote corners of the world where civilizations flourished so many centuries and millennia ago that it offers a completely different view of the world for people to sort of peek in at.
These discoveries are a reflection of what we as humans are capable of. Our strength and adaptability, our imagination and creativity, and our mortality.
The more we know, the less we know. The more questions we answer, the more questions it brings up. So it's never really over.